session is the finance update. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, just a fairly brief update, running through a hodgepodge of financial topics, some of which are before you tonight, some of which is teeing up some actions that will follow at your June meeting. So I'm just going to jump right in. The first thing on your actual consent agenda action item tonight is the approval of a bond resolution. That's a technical mumbo jumbo to simply mean this is the official kickoff of the 2022 referendum that was approved by the voters back in November. So when you passed your budget and approved your CIP in April, you laid out how of those projects will be done sequentially. The voters have done their piece, so there's really only two more steps. Tonight we are asking you to approve this particular financing. We are asking to sell up to $105 million in bonds. It's a fairly even split. This will be one of the county's larger sales from the 22 referendum. We're about, like I said, about half and half, county and schools. And then if approved tonight, we will sell those securities in June. We were in New York City a couple weeks ago on a rating trip. You go up and basically give an update on the county's, overall performance, financial position, management strategy, all of our, really a little bit of all the departments that you see come through your afternoon work session. So we've done that step. This is what's remaining. The projects are listed up here. It's larger on the county side because we are pre-funding your FY24 project. So obviously we've got 23 that we can go ahead and do, but we are going to sell 23 and 24. That gives us some synergies on a few of these projects, particularly River City, which was cut up into a couple of chunks. Now we can fund that all together, the 23 and 24 pieces. It makes it a little bit easier from a Parks and Rec who will manage that project, procurement, just gives some streamlining of that process. You also see some of the pieces for Horner Park, Chester Fire Station, Falling Creek Police Station, and Enon Library. So a big list on the county side. Schools really focused around the rest of A.M. Davis, and we'll talk about how that puzzle comes together completely in a second. Bensley, and then really sort of the first wave of monies for the western area schools, the elementary, the middle, and the high school, trying to do some preliminary work there. That's going to be it's a large haul with those three projects. We won't sell all of that in one go, but they will do the first part of that. So that's what's on your agenda for tonight. We do not have, as of, I was hoping to have it for this afternoon. We've had preliminary feedback from all the rating agencies. But we're not at liberty to release that just yet. We're going back and forth on some of the details there, but everything that we've received thus far is very positive. So as soon as we do get that, we will certainly make a big push, get the information to you and the public in terms of what those ratings are. But I think really the value in there, the interesting thing is in the story that comes from the release. You basically get a 2 or 3 page report, maybe sometimes longer, and they have some really interesting tidbits in there in terms of how they view the county, what things are important, and a lot of the financial questions that come up over the course of the year are really covered in there. And so we will probably at your June meeting spend a little bit of time, we'll make sure you get the releases, but spend a little bit of time with the community and sort of show them from the rating agency perspective how, what their lens is like, what they're looking at, and where their focus is in terms of how they view the county. Speaking of capital projects, like I said, this is it's an exciting time because, again, this is the kickoff of our $540 million referendum, and well-timed. General services, IST, parks, budget, schools, transportation, utilities. Mr. Winslow, you talked about how well departments work around here. This is a great example of that. This is an update. We've had a capital projects portal for a number of years. It's just gotten a little bit dated, and we've got some better technology tools. So the IST folks really did a heavy lift here, updating our capital projects portal, and you see everything that's active that has $1 million budget or more. Some really good details in terms of schedule, budget, mapping, or any notes about what's going on is listed on this. You can get to this from several places on our website. The main page, it's on general services, has links to it. Budget has links to it. So we point this out. It's now active. You can go out there and check it out. It's a very, very useful tool, public facing, again, live today. But we really wanted to make a push here because as we get into the referendum and folks have entrusted us to sell, over the course of a number of years, $540 million worth of bonds, it's really important that they're not just, reliant on a monthly board meeting, that they can go out and look at this information at any time and see what's going on in their community, particularly around the referendum, but it will be much broader than that. So I think this is a really exciting thing. And again, have to thank the ISD folks for all their hard work to make this happen. Setting the table a little bit for your June meeting, but just, always like to talk about our process to set the public hearing at 1 month and hold the following. We have 2 of those requests on your agenda tonight. First and foremost, we are going to come to you with some amendments to the FY23 budget process. So there is a public hearing request there. Anytime that you potentially are appropriating more than 1% of your total budget, you have to go through the public hearing process. So that's what we are anticipating here. We've got a number of opportunities, I think, with particularly around capital projects, some land acquisition, economic development type activities, and then some policy compliance issues, putting some fund balance away, normal things that we believe will be in excess of that 1%. We will get more information out about this as we approach. As I'll touch on at the end, we have an audit and finance meeting in June to kind of go through this plan. We'll be getting with all of you over the course of the next 10 days or so to talk about this. But again, this is just that procedural step to set that public hearing. The second request is your ARPA plan, and I'm going to touch on the details of that in just a moment. Part of the plan, part of the compliance with ARPA is that you have opportunities for public input. Not a whole lot of change in this round, but we do have some amendments. It's really, as the projects have unfolded, we're moving some dollars around and you kind of figure out what's a good fit for ARPA. I'll go through those changes in a second. But any time that you are moving monies amongst the projects, you are required to have that public input opportunity. The cleanest way for us to do that is a public hearing. I'm going to go through this in much more detail next month in the public hearing, but just to give folks a sense, the items in the blue are really what we're talking about. There's 3 columns of numbers. The first is that initial layout that we had. Really didn't even have a final rule book about what we could do with ARPA, so we took our best guess. We had a major revision once the rule book was complete in 22, and now coming back to make these proposed changes in the June meeting. Just very quickly, you see the county facility improvements, and I'm going through in order. The block in blue, the $865,000, that's a project that was lumped in. It is some campus renovations here at the courthouse area. So that's not a new project. We're just spinning it out, and it's really just sort of a reporting cleanup on our side. The parks maintenance and enhancement, $18 million going down to about 17. That's really just as you get into the projects, refine those scopes and get better ideas of what they're going to cost. So you see a little bit of cost savings there. The Midlothian Police Station site, we still bought the site, but as we got into it, the way that transpired, we paid for that really with other dollars. It became difficult to kind of go through because we didn't buy that as an individual parcel. We bought the overall tract, and it was just difficult from a accounting and reporting perspective to sort of break that out. We didn't feel like it was super clean. So we have pulled that out of ARPA. I think that will be, again, there's no practical ramification there except for making this a cleaner proposal. And I think as we have touched on before, the feds are really zeroing in on this. There's a lot of noise about trying to pull monies back, so we're trying to keep it as clean as possible and put the dollars in places where it can be spent down as quickly as possible. The Real-Time Crime Center, you see an increase there. That is a public safety initiative, and this will cover some building improvements as well as all the technology that's associated with that. So we'll be able to take care of the full range of that project as part of that fit well within the ARPA envelope. And then on the school construction piece there, you see the amount doesn't change, but actually we're moving those dollars from Fallen Creek Middle School to Ames Davis. I mentioned earlier, Ames Davis is part of the bond authority that we're asking for tonight, but we will roughly cover more than half of that with ARPA dollars. It was a better fit, as you all are aware. Anytime you introduce federal dollars into something, it opens up a number of other hurdles you have to jump through, and it would have been sort of it would have slowed down our efforts at Fallen Creek. So it's a better fit at Ames Davis, has less impact there from all of the federal rules and regs that you have to complete. So still $25 million investment in schools, just a different school. Again, obviously it has no impact on Fallen Creek, but actually allows that to get done a little bit sooner and takes a little bit of pressure off of the referendum. We all know there are more capital projects on the school side than we can accommodate, so any time that we can create capacity, that's a good thing. And then you see our contingency, again, it kind of goes back to that spending it down as soon as possible, drops that down to $66,000. So we'll go through this in a little bit more detail next month, but again, to try to get the information out in the community as soon as possible, we wanted to walk through that this afternoon. And then lastly, again, teeing up as we get into our year end, we will have that audit and finance on 6/21. It is a big agenda, but we will go through primarily with relation to today, focus on those potential budget amendments for FY23, as well as any potential amendments that we have to FY24. Hopefully we'll get some guidance on the state side, county and schools. So we can do that without a public hearing. I don't think there will be a lot of changes to 24 on either side. So we are not setting or anticipating the need for a public hearing, but we will cover that with you all ahead of time, but certainly always look for the feedback from our audit and finance team. The dissolution of the Chip and Hand Place CDA, we've taken the first step there. Again, this is a rare thing in government. We're sort of demolishing some of the bureaucracy that allows things to happen. So it's a good day from my perspective. We've done this once. Chip and Hand Place actually can take this off the books sooner than later because it has been such a success. And then not only is it just get rid of that red tape, but more so it frees up considerable resources and reserves that have been amassed from the success at Stonebridge, and those will be dollars that will be very valuable to limit any financial impact from what we're trying to do across the street at Springline. So that's really important. I think that the nexus there is very, very clear. At any time that we can take monies from a success in our redevelopment space and move it over to another project, I think that's a really good day. And again, get a CDA off the books sooner than anticipated really builds some credibility in this space if we ever wanted to use this tool again. So I think that's very important to mention FY24. And then lastly, we will hold our 2 public hearings. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Quick question about just the nuts and bolts of it. Once we go ahead and move forward with $105 million, when is interest rates? Like, how does that work as far as how much we're going to be paying? When does that get set?
Yeah, yes, sir. So again, we're waiting. Our goal is by close of business tomorrow that we'll have all of our ratings from the 3 agencies, and so then they basically hold that for 3 or 4 weeks or so. So we have between now and the end of the year to close on those bonds. I think we're anticipated to do that sometime in mid-June. So we will spend that 3-week period once we have the rating in hands to basically market the securities, and then it's a competitive sale. So we'll set a time, say 10 a.m. on that day, and you log into an online portal and all of the bids appear at one moment, and the lowest cost guy gets it. And so we're locked in at that moment. We do a little bit of resizing maybe throughout the day, but we're basically locked in from that moment for the duration of those securities. So you get that assurance, right up front. And we'll certainly pass all of that information along to the board as it becomes available to us.
And then also a question around that there seems to be a cascading thing occurring as far as we're not clear where our budget is going to be. We're waiting on the state, and then the state's waiting on the federal. So I'm kind of curious to get a sense from you. Does it impact at all what we're thinking about doing as far as the bond is concerned, or I'm just curious to know.
Yeah, no, sir. I mean, I think in terms of our capital strategy, we aren't waiting for anyone. I mean, certainly some of the federal nonsense can spook markets from, day to day, and that may have a little bit of an impact on us. But our capital strategy is absolutely locked in. What we're talking about for fiscal 24 is just on the operational side. We've designed it such we have very limited exposure to what the state and feds are doing or not doing. So, to the extent we have to come back and modify around the edges, we'll be ready to do that. But, I'm not anticipating any significant impacts to either, major pieces of our budget for fiscal 24. We're fairly well insulated by design. Yeah.
My spidey sense tells me that Dr. Casey wants to tell us something.
And I think 5 board members may know more right now. I don't get to say it often, but hot off the press, Fitch just released their rating of AAA stable, which is the highest of the highest ratings. They have positives when you're in lower rankings to get up to the next level. There is no quadruple A, although we have referenced that a few times that would be nice. But having said that, and again, as Mr. Harris referenced, the AAA was not necessarily, a surprise. We expected that. We expected the stable rating. It is the narrative analysis that is public, and we will share it with the public of again, everything that we do and what their thoughts are independent of what we say.
Again, I think I learned things this time that haven't in past interactions with the agencies, and I think it would be a really nice session, I think, especially for audit and finance, to some of the things that they are focusing on now. An example of that would be all 3 agencies focusing on cybersecurity, and that really, that's not something you necessarily think of as part of your, your financial score or your financial rating, but that's more and more so becoming to the forefront of, how they're reviewing you. So, those are the things that are valuable for us to come back and bring to you all. It's not just did you get the AAA, which we fully expect to do, but how do we invest resources based on where their focus areas are.
Thank you, Matt. Any other board members?
Yeah, I'll just comment. I appreciate the information, Matt. And once the bonds sale in June, then they'll provide us a one-page sheet through audit and finance of the return, the yield, and the cost of borrowing, that sort of thing. We know cost is going up. That's clear with the Federal Reserve actions. However, the question is how much and what we get out of that relative to the AAA. And so we'll be providing that to each board member as well, the one-page sheet on the bond sales.
Yes, sir. And just to the world, from a rhythm perspective, we'll be doing this every May, bringing you the resolution to approve whatever we anticipate selling in June for the full duration of so we're just governs this sale, and we'll be back a year from now with the next one.
Thank you, sir.